Artificial intelligence is reinventing business as we speak. You can either get up to speed or get left behind. The choice is yours, and really, it's a no-brainer. Join Cognitive Path founders Geoff Livingston and Greg Verdino as they chat with AI experts about the latest ideas, trends, and technologies that are creating the future of business today. This is No Brainer.
Hey everybody, it's Geoff Livingston and welcome to the No Brainer podcast. As usual, I am joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Greg Verdino. Greg, how are you?
I am doing well, my friend. How are you?
Excellent. We are winding down the first week in September and fall air is amongst us. It feels very good compared to this very hot summer we just had.
Oh my God, it is so much better, isn't it? I feel like the temperature dropped about 30 degrees and it finally feels like it's livable again.
Yeah, it's sleeping, it's better, all that stuff. So it's good. It's good. Now we could get down to business and have a great third and fourth quarter. And with that, let's get into the podcast. We have a great guest, a professor, an IBMer. But before Greg introduces her, we do have our usual run list of no-brainer commercials. So if you like this podcast, please punch the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It really helps the show. We appreciate it, and do share it. And of course, if you have feedback, email, post a comment, whatever, we really appreciate it. DM one of us. We definitely listen to folks like you, and we want to hear from you. We do occasional mailbag episodes. And as always, thank you to our sponsors from the Marketing Podcast Network. Greg, take it away.
Awesome. So today we are joined by Kait Arnold. Kait is, as Geoff said, an IBMer. So we're really excited about this. She's a senior AI and watsonx technical specialist at IBM. And I actually met Kait through a different role altogether. She's an adjunct professor at Fairfield University, where she brought me in to do a lecture one day. Her students had to suffer through that. She also teaches at Columbia University. So I think we have our work cut out for us today because she's probably going to keep us on our toes. Kait, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm happy it's Friday. I am a summer girl, so we'll start there. I'm sad that it's 30 degrees colder. I miss the heat. I like sweating in the sun. I like getting a little sunburn after a day in the sun. So we'll start with the disagreement.
Oh no!
Well, hopefully that's the last one of the show.
It will be.
We're always happy to disagree respectfully, of course. Although I don't know if I can respect that whole sweating and.
Oh my God! Are you a runner? Do you do outdoor activity?
God, no. I like outdoor activities. Running is not one of them.
Okay. Start running and see how you feel about that.
So speaking of running, there is certainly no slowdown to the pace of change in AI. And I think everybody that's involved with the space, who follows the space, who's interested in the space, who's even peripheral to the space, knows that AI is accelerating at an exponential pace, right? And that's been happening probably for decades in a way, but we hit that sort of tipping point a couple of years ago with the emergence of generative AI. And now every time there's even a hint that any of the usual suspects, OpenAI, Anthropic, etc., is releasing a new model, there's always this, this is the one. We're on the cusp of AGI. It's going to change the world. We're all losing our jobs. We're, merging with the machine, right? It's this sort of like AI takeover, right? That I know in some ways has begun to turn, right? Where we've started to see the hype cycle cool down. The bubbles may be bursting a little bit around that narrative. Even Gartner has generative AI kind of going into that dip towards the trough of disillusionment. But you're working this stuff every day. You're in the belly of the beast, working with clients who are doing real work with AI. And of course, IBM with watsonx has been at AI for a long time, or with Watson, now watsonx. I'd love to hear your perspective. What's the reality?
Yeah, so I think that there's definitely two different lenses to answer that from. One, I think it's the consumer lens. So AI is very new to a lot of consumers. I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I would tell people that I work in artificial intelligence and data science, they would look at me like I had 17 heads. Probably have explained to my mom what I do 34 times, and she still has no idea. But at least now she knows what artificial intelligence is, and that's not from me. She's hearing it on the TV. She's seeing it in news articles. So I think that the consumer hype is so loud right now because of the lack of knowledge of AI for the last 100 or so years. So I think that the consumer hype is really high right now just because of a lack of knowledge. And I think that people are getting really knowledgeable about AI. So I think that once people start to dive in further, once they really understand artificial intelligence, what it does, and start interacting with platforms like Gemini, ChatGPT, IBM Granite, then I think that hype will die down because consumers will understand artificial intelligence. They'll understand what it is. They'll start using it. So I think that we'll see that curve probably start to even out once people get more comfortable with it. But I think the other side of that is businesses and how businesses are using their research and development teams to drive AI further. And I really hope that doesn't slow down. I think that at IBM, the rapid pace of change and improvement of our technologies is something like I have never seen before. The rate at which our developers are improving our products has changed dramatically in the last 2 or 3 years. So I think that from a developer standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, I think that hype cycle is going to continue. Because I mean, if you think about it, we're developing products, and that product can be used by the finance team. It can be used internally by the accounting team, by procurement, by sales. So internally, our entire business is changing because we're incorporating AI into all of our different life cycles. So I think that for businesses, that hype cycle is going to continue because businesses are going to transform the way we know it.
Very nice. Yeah, it's funny. I was at an event today, and I was listening to one of the NASA administrators, and they were talking about their goals, which are 2040 and getting to the moon, obviously, and Mars, and everything else that they do there, which is incredible if you think about how quickly they move traditionally and historically. But even they are looking at AI as like liquid dynamite to really accelerate everything. And that includes internal transformation and allowing themselves to do work a little bit faster and, more importantly, innovate to the point where they can achieve their goals of putting people in flight and doing so with commercial partners in a new way that they had never imagined before. Where do you think that some of the incredible moments that we're going to see are going to come? Like, I could see them, obviously, as usual with science and technology leading, but do you see some like possible, oh my gosh, we never really expected that moments coming?
I think, yes, 1,000%. And I think that we're going to see it most in the areas that haven't had the biggest, that technology hasn't really hit the hardest yet. So I think things like maybe healthcare, education, avenues that have room for rapid improvement and rapid advancement using technology. I think that those are going to be hit the hardest. I think that the financial industry has been doing a pretty good job at keeping up with the pace of technology. So there may be a slower impact there. I think that there definitely will be an impact, but I think some areas like healthcare, that it's really in the research phase. It hasn't really reached the consumers from a healthcare perspective. I think we'll see rapid innovation in some of those domains. And actually, NASA released their first geospatial foundation model. So it covers all of the Earth, covers all of the Earth's surfaces, and it's leveraging a foundation model, and they partnered with IBM to do that. So I'm surprised you didn't hear that in the lecture.
They have so many crazy things they're doing. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, one of the things they were talking about today was they're working with Boeing on, which of course has its own, never mind, let's not go there.
A whole nother topic.
They're working with Boeing to create basically jet fuel free flight. And they're using AI to really accelerate that development as well. So they have so many crazy things that they're doing. But anyway, Greg, you had a question, and I so crazily went into space with that.
Right. No, that was great. And it I'm there's two things in my mind. One is, Kate, you were talking about the nature of consumer hype, and even recently, Oprah has been criticized by some, and I don't think you came here expecting to talk about Oprah, but I don't know if she did or is going to do an AI episode. And if you looked at the sort of press release and some of the narrative around it, it was so hype filled, and some of the folks that are in like the ethics space or responsible AI space were like, Oprah, this is your chance to bring a balanced narrative to the table and let people know what's really going on. So there is still that, consumer hype thing going on. But when I think about the first time probably most consumers ever heard about AI outside of science fiction and really kind of understood what might be possible, I think of Watson. Right. And I think of Jeopardy back when Watson, kind of trounced the Jeopardy champion. Right. And it was one of those first instances where obviously very different AI than what we're using today, and even a very different Watson than what we're using today. Really was the first time I think a lot of people were like, ooh, AI can do that. So I'm wondering kind of what's changed between then and now.
Yes. So I guess with Watson being used for Jeopardy, they were really using natural language processing and taking a corpus of information using natural language processing for Q&A pairs. So honestly, the foundation of the technology that they're using now, it's still the same methodology. However, it's using a lot more data. Now we're talking billions and billions of parameters of data. It's using a foundation model versus natural language processing. So a foundation model is extremely powerful. It has a vast amount of domain knowledge. It's more expensive. So I would say that there's a lot of differences, but with that cost, you get really powerful answers. So whereas the foundation models that IBM is leveraging now, it's called our foundation models are called Granite models. It's a model family that is built on, we have multiple different parameters, but some are, I think 13 billion parameters. We have one that's a little bit lower than that and one that's a little bit higher than that. So we're talking massive amounts of data, like incomprehensible amounts of data. So I think that that's one of the main differences from when we were talking about Jeopardy. I believe that was in 2011. Don't quote me on that, but around that time frame. So I think the amount of data in combination with the compute power. So the compute power that we have available now because of GPUs is just significantly higher than what we had in the past. So I would say that the two main differences are compute and data. And there's also been significant algorithmic advances. So when we were previously using natural language processing, now we're using what's called a large language model or a foundation model. So I think that it's the same methodology of question and answer based on a corpus of data, but with a massive amount of more power, massive amount of more data, using the power of a large language model, which is transformers. And I won't get into all of that, but if anyone's interested in it, I'll talk about it at a later date or on LinkedIn or something like that. But massive algorithmic data increases and compute power changes.
Awesome. And then the other thing that came to mind, it was as you were speaking and then as Geoff was speaking too, about, what he was hearing at NASA and some of the use cases, it seems to us, in the work we do, that a little bit of a bubble burst in the corporate hype, is actually a very good thing. That when business people have an opportunity to see through all of the noise and actually think about what does this mean for our business? How do we deploy it strategically? And how can we have real impact for our organization or our customers, let's say, that kind of the serious people get down to work and start doing things that matter, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in aerospace, whether it's whatever. What are you seeing? Do you feel like we've hit that point now where corporate decision makers are starting to get beyond this notion that AI is just pixie dust we can sprinkle on everything and it does magic? And, AI is a real transformative technology that can be applied strategically to solve challenges for our business.
Yeah, I think we're definitely at that stage. I think my busiest time at IBM, and I meet with clients on a daily basis and mostly at the the request of clients. So when clients are asking questions about AI, I'm very busy. So I was very busy right after the announcement of ChatGPT. Organizations were like, "Oh my God, what is this new technology? How can we use it? Let's use it here, 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 and here." And they started to map out what that could look like without understanding what generative AI was, without figuring out, do we have people to support this? Do we want to use traditional AI? Do we want to use generative AI? Are we even using traditional AI first? Or are we just going to jump onto generative AI? So I think that there's a lot of factors that are coming into play in conversations now, and organizations are thinking about it a lot more level-headed now than they were a year and a half ago, because I think people understand the ramifications of implementing AI unethically or not strategically thinking about the impact to their consumers, the impact to their clients, the impact to their image. So I think that people are now starting to take into account a number of different things that they probably weren't when they previously started.
Yeah, there is an element of pixie dust to it, where a lot of people seem to really still think that, well, we just need AI. And another difficult conversation we see often with folks is, yeah, maybe the AI could do that, maybe it can't. Depends on the situation, obviously. But even if it can, there's still you and your organization and the change that needs to happen for you to facilitate not just, obviously supporting the AI with the data and the human in the loop and all the process that has to happen to make a training model successful as you deploy it, but also all the collaboration, all the work on the inside, all the policy. I think people are still kind of shocked when they realize that for AI to be successful, you really need a great human team and a team that's committed to evolving.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
1,000%. I think also for AI to be impactful at an organization, you need to use the AI. If you make a chatbot to help employees accomplish task 1 through 47 in their day to day, and they don't accomplish, and then they don't use it at all, task 1 through 47 is getting done the same exact way it was yesterday before AI. I can relate it to the iPhone. I think that iPhone is probably one of the most commonly used cell phones right now. So in 2007, what's the invention of the iPhone without users that are going to go and purchase the iPhone and use the iPhone and start interacting with things like Siri and now use iMessage and adapt to this new way of doing things? If people didn't jump on board with the innovation of Apple, then we wouldn't be where we are today. So I think that that's probably more than half the puzzle, is not figuring out what AI you're going to use and how you're going to use it, is making sure that you're set up from a strategic standpoint and from a people standpoint to enact on that AI. And your employees understand how to use it in an ethical way. They understand what it can be used for, what it can't be used for. So I think that that's just an important piece of the puzzle.
Are you seeing more of an acknowledgement with the folks you're talking to about that, the need for the change management, the need for training, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that comes from some failed deployments of AI. People are realizing, okay, that solution actually, maybe their measurement was accuracy. Maybe it reached some of the measurements that they wanted. But if their employees aren't going to take action, if their employees aren't going to use it, your return on investment is near zero. So I think that your accuracy measurements, whatever you're defining success, is just as important as the usability by employees.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things wrapped up in that, right? It's, you use the word strategic, and obviously we believe strongly in having, if not having an AI strategy, certainly understanding AI's impact and influence on your business strategy, right? Mm-hmm. You incorporate it into your core strategy. We talk a lot about defining clear use cases, and a big piece of that is understanding what your organization is looking to achieve, mm-hmm. right? So having clearly defined objectives. We're also seeing and hearing more people talk about the human factors, the importance of change management, the importance of thinking through process and workflow and jobs and roles and responsibilities and all these things, both from an empowerment standpoint, how do you prepare people to and educate people, upskill them to use these tools effectively in their roles. And also sometimes, frankly, even in sort of, in terms of, I don't like the word punishment, but consequences, like what happens if somebody just chooses not to become part of the future of an AI powered organization. How is that person managed now, as an employee of the organization? But putting that aside,
if they're an employee of the
right, if they
organization.
remain an employee of the organization, I think in some ways, as you said, it's maybe companies or leaders in those companies are learning lessons from failed AI implementations, right? We made this big investment and it fizzled because the people were not on board. I think it probably even in some ways predates AI because companies have been doing that forever. They implemented an ERP, a B2B community site. They've started running on Salesforce or whatever the situation may be. And they think that their employees are just going to kind of run along, and adopt the new technology, change the way they do things, be happy about it, and that the organization will reap the benefits. What are some of the specific things that you would recommend an organization does to make sure their people do get on board when the company is investing in AI infrastructure and technologies?
I would say from an expertise standpoint, there's going to need to be some internal expertise at that organization and then some external expertise. So are you going to bring in vendors? Are you going to partner with experts? Are you going to bring in consultants? So I would say making sure, let's say you're using a RAG approach for a chatbot for your organization. We use one internally at IBM for HR. So it's called Ask HR. So let's say you're going to implement something at this organization for HR to limit the amount of cognitive load on HR professionals. So we're going to reduce the amount that employees are reaching out to HR professionals. We're going to put a bot in between that. If people don't understand what that bot can do, what it can't do, they're not going to use it. And I think that stems from either building it internally and having clear definitions of how it should be used. So guidelines and protocols for the employees, or bringing in external expertise, partner with experts, make sure that anything that you're implementing internally has a defined roadmap for how it's going to use, how you're going to empower the employees. Do the employees understand the technology behind it? They don't need to understand the exact algorithm that is powering it, but at a fundamental level, do they understand how it's working? Do they understand what a hallucination is if they're working with generative AI? So I think education is probably the most important thing I would say there. And probably starting those questions with your organization's strategy in mind versus thinking, what can AI do for us? I think a lot of times organizations are like, oh, this company used AI for XYZ and it saved them XYZ dollars. But if that's not on your strategic roadmap for the next 5-10 years, you probably shouldn't be thinking about that. Let's think about what your organization's strategy is, where you're trying to go, where you're trying to build revenue, where's taking up the most of your employees' time from a manual standpoint, and then go from there. Of course, you want to learn from organizations, learn from what they're doing. But I think that organizations really need to sit down and think, where are areas that we can improve before thinking let's just throw AI at everything.
Excellent. Why don't we pause a bit for a break here from our sponsors, and we will be back with more Kait Arnold in just a few moments.
Hey, everybody. We're back with Kait. Thank you so much for your responses. And we talked a little bit earlier, and we even danced around people that aren't adopting AI in the workforce. And obviously there's reasons for that. Some of it is, hey, this might take my job. Some of it may be simply fear. I mean, there are a lot of people, and I'm one of them, that just doesn't like change sometimes, and forcing myself to go through it is usually my answer. But not everybody handles things the same way, and some people just resist. And obviously there are implications for people that aren't adopting AI. And there's also implications for people that are seeing some of their functions simply disappear or get automated. What are your thoughts about how AI is going to impact the workforce?
I think we're already seeing rapid impact to the workforce. I think the way people do work is changing. People are using AI to automate simple tasks like writing an email, things like that. And I think that it is going to get rid of jobs. However, I don't say that with a negative connotation. I think that AI is going to get rid of jobs while it's also opening the door for new jobs that we never thought were possible. I think that people that are, I'll give you an example, people that may want to start their own business may have previously needed to hire a content creator, a copywriter, someone to help them with their social media. And now that person can do all of that, and they can do it in a productive and efficient way because they can leverage generative AI. So maybe that person wouldn't have been able to be an entrepreneur 5 years ago because that wasn't possible for them to wear all of those hats. They would need to spend a lot of money to bring people on to do that type of work. But I think that it's opening the door for people to take on new roles leveraging generative AI. So while I do think that we will see some jobs that are very manual in their nature, maybe some analyst roles that are extracting data from documents and inputting that into a system, those types of roles may be replaced with generative AI. But maybe that person hated their job anyways, and maybe they wanted to start a cookie company, and now they can do that because they can leverage the power of generative AI to really help them. They can use generative AI to help them from a creative process about what their slogan should be. They can use it for recipes. I've even used generative AI for recipes. So I think there's so many doors that AI and generative AI specifically is opening. But I do believe it will change the workforce forever. But I don't say that with a negative connotation, because I think that people will truly be able to tap into things and tap into passions that they weren't able to previously.
Greg, is this where we take on marketing?
Maybe. But, so we, obviously marketing, you've already, referenced a bunch of marketing tasks or types, right? Whether it's social media manager or content marketer or creative director or art director or copywriter or whatever. There's an entire industry potentially that if it doesn't change, it's in its crosshairs, right? The crosshairs of AI. And then there's also the stuff that, isn't as sexy, but, you look at jobs like HR. You look at jobs like accounting or auditing or even paralegal work or whatever, where there's so much of that job could potentially be automated with AI, whether it's generative AI or traditional AI, right? Not that the roles go away entirely, but many of the tasks can be done much more efficiently, more effectively, maybe higher degree of accuracy even than what you might expect of a human worker. And a lot of those tasks might also be the least palatable of the tasks that human worker does. However, it is a lot of what that person in that role might spend their time doing. So, how does a company ensure that AI isn't just an excuse to slim down the workforce, right? And get rid of entire functions or take 10 people, turn it into the job of one. How do you ensure that there is a future for the worker in the workforce? And I guess what is the employee's personal responsibility for ensuring that they upskill to keep pace with the change?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that there's two things that I'm going to answer with your first question was like, why are humans still needed in the process? And I'm going to answer that from two different lenses. The first lens is AI isn't perfect. AI isn't perfect. Humans aren't perfect. You need the combination of the two. You can use AI to augment what humans are doing, and you can use humans to augment what AI is doing. I don't think that AI is ever going to be perfect. So I always think that we're going to need that human in the loop to review the output of AI, to have that feedback mechanism to always continuously improve the AI. So I think perfection, because of the lack of perfection in both, we're going to need both. And then I think the other element is you're going to need a human, like a function like HR. You're not going to have an individual go to their HR team for something as serious as sexual harassment or something like that and have that individual feel comforted talking to a robot. So there's just some things that a robot cannot replace. You need that human there. If it's something like, let's say it's the supply chain team and there's an issue and the package is sitting on someone's stoop and you need to call that person to get it off their stoop, to bring it to UPS. You need to compensate them for doing that. There's going to be things that just happen because life can be crazy and crazy things happen that AI won't be powered to handle. So you're always going to need a human in the loop for a lot of these. However, you can eliminate a lot of that boring work, which I think a lot of people will be thankful for. They'll be thankful that they don't need to do expense reports anymore or manual data entry. So that would be my answer to that. Did I answer that full question? Was there the last piece there?
Yep, absolutely. Although
Okay.
I'm gonna disagree, because I think that if there's anything that is unfixable in all of corporate America, at least it is the expense report. I don't think, no matter how
Oh,
successful technology becomes,
it is my
expense report
least favorite
There's
task.
will
still going to be
always be
somebody
painless.
grilling you too on the other side. Why did you do what? Who?
A whole nother podcast topic of how much I hate expense reports.
Yeah.
They've always been terrible. I think they will always be terrible. But, a lot of what you're
Yes.
pointing to is interesting, because it's the, it's the argument, of course, that if we can automate the routine, the repeatable,
Hmm.
that people can rise to, a level where they're doing more rewarding work.
Yes.
And organizations, of course, need to recognize that there is value in that for the organization.
Hmm.
And also, I think the thing you hit on is the importance of soft skills, right?
Hmm.
In your example about HR and sexual harassment, there are certain things where, for handling, let's say, as the example from earlier, the routine, I'm bugging my HR person because I can't find the expense report, or I don't know what the
Hmm.
policy is on this or that or whatever. And you can go to a chatbot for that and get the rote response, but you're probably not going to go to the chatbot when you have an interpersonal issue that needs to be handled, right?
Curious though, I asked both of you this. Like one of the problems with harassment cases, just generally, is that the human HR, if you would, and then perhaps management, bury it. Right. This is historically a massive issue. There goes my mouse. Oh my god, I got so excited talking. But it's a pretty serious topic. I mean, does having an AI participate, at least having that record, so it's undeniable, is that useful? Because I know it has a completely different context, but in the same sense, with Alzheimer's diagnosis, having that robot, if you would, or the application score the Alzheimer's test is actually producing more positive diagnoses, so that people can actually get in front of Alzheimer's before it gets too quick, because doctors are biased, right? I mean, that's an easy example where it's for the good, but maybe this is one of those tough ones where maybe having an AI at least record and be present to create that kind of, you can't run away from this record. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
That's such an interesting point. It's such a valid point. And I think that goes to a very general statement that I'm going to say, is that humans are so subjective. We are not as black and white as we think we are. There's some people that may go through something like that at work and may prefer to talk to AI and only AI, and they may not trust the human. And there's some people that would never want to talk to AI about that situation, would not want them involved in that process at all. So I think that having both available could be great for an organization. And also, you said for record keeping, there are going to be some things that AI can just do better. A human might not remember everything from a conversation, but if you're transcribing that speech to text and then you're putting that into a database, your database isn't forgetting. Database has really, really good memory. It's not forgetting that. So I think that sorry.
No, and people quit, right? So let's say
Yeah.
HR person one quits, there's one or two records with somebody, and then new person comes in and the AI is like, hey, this is the third offense, you need to escalate based off of this. Right?
Yeah.
Policy.
Yeah. And I guess, at the end of the day, this goes back to what you were saying earlier, Kate, about, AI augmenting humans and humans augmenting AI, right? It's understanding for any particular usage or use case, where is the right line? How do we provide perhaps multiple doors of entry into a process where, whether it's an employee or a customer prefers a simple, seamless, automated experience. Some people like that in customer service. Some people like that in HR. Some people like that in, in even, there's been, little case studies or pilots of using, sort of generative AI therapists, right?
Yeah,
And
I've seen
some people like that, right?
Yeah.
And then others
I told
don't.
you not to tell her about that.
We're getting real here. We're talking about everything.
Right. And frankly, others prefer, just get me to the human right away. I want to speak to a person, right? How many times have you done that when you're in a call tree and you're, going human, agent?
Not me.
And then
I'm so patient.
right? And it's like, but different people have different, kind of you know, styles and ways they like to interact. And sometimes one is right in one scenario, one is right in another. So, that becomes, I think, a set of important considerations as organizations think about what can we automate versus what should we automate, right? I think something that kind of a thread that runs through all of this is, regardless of what's happening now and how it plays out exactly, it is undeniable that the future of work, the nature of jobs, the way we work, what we do in our work, all of this stuff is going to be, in a lot of ways, fundamentally different as we look out towards the future. Jeff's got a teenager. I've got a 21-year-old and a 9-year-old, although he'll tell me 9.5 to be precise about it. Right. So there are these, 3 human beings who are, eking their way or inching their way towards the work world, I hope, at least in the case of the 1-year-old in particular. So you obviously, in addition to working inside IBM, where it's work, enterprise, are also teaching into university programs at both Fairfield and Columbia, as we said at the outset. So I'm curious about your perspective on the next generation of the workforce, these students that you're working with in your second job and third job. What are they thinking about AI? Are they thinking about AI? They're clearly taking your course, so to some extent, yes. But how are you preparing them for a world where they will be working alongside AI undeniably, regardless of what they do?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that a lot of my students come into the class and they're scared of artificial intelligence. And I think that as humans, a lot of times we're scared of things that we know nothing about. So I think that once they start to learn about what artificial intelligence is, learn a teeny bit about maybe the math under the hood or the statistics, not too deep. You just need to know a little bit to be dangerous. They start to understand how it works, that you train an artificial intelligence model with data, and that's why it can predict things. I think that once you understand the basics of data science, the basics of artificial intelligence, you're not as scared of it anymore, because you say, okay, I trained this model to do this and now it's doing that. The model's not just doing it. I mean, I think foundation models and generative AI allows for more general tasks to be accomplished with less training data. But I think that we're still training the model. We're still training the model to do these things that we're talking about. So I think that students come in and they're very scared. And I think that education is the only thing that is going to help students and to help individuals to not be scared about artificial intelligence. So I'll give that as a general blanket statement. Anyone that's scared about artificial intelligence, learn about it. It's really powerful. And I think that with students, my stance on incorporating AI into the classroom is 1,000%. I don't think, if anyone asked me, would you rather do this and take 7 hours doing it, or would you rather do it and take 30 minutes doing it? 30 minutes every single time. I would never say 7 hours unless it's like lying on the sun reading a book or something like that. But no one's asking me if I want to do that these days. So I think that when we're talking about research, when we're talking about learning, when we're talking about doing things as human beings, we're going to want to take the easy route. It's in our human nature to want to make things more efficient, to want to do things in a quicker way. We're impatient. I am so impatient. So I want to use AI so that I can do things quicker, that I don't have to wait for the book to be available at the library so that I can read it. I want to understand what crypto is right now. I want to understand right now, and I want to understand it in 15 minutes. I don't want to have to take seven hours to do a deep dive on crypto. So I think that students need to let their curiosity about artificial intelligence drive them to start using it in their personal lives. And I encourage that every single day in the classroom. I think the more you understand a technology, the more you use a technology, the more you're going to understand exactly how it should be used, and maybe have ideas about development, ideas about things like that. So I definitely encourage its use in the classroom in every single regard, in every single shape and form.
What are some of the more interesting ways that they're thinking about it from a futuristic standpoint, the students?
I would say in terms of creativity, I think it's confidence. is something that breeds creativity. And I think when we're in that adolescent stage, a lot of people lack that confidence. So their creative brains may not be working as much as a fully developed adult that knows who they are, that knows a little bit more about the world and is confident in their viewpoints. So I think that a lot of students struggle with some assignments that require creativity because they may not be confident in their ability to speak about that subject. So maybe it limits their ability to present that project. But I think that the amount of research that is available from these foundation models, the expedited process of researching something and becoming an expert about it will increase students' confidence, which will allow them to be more creative in multiple different areas. Let's say a student has a final project and they need to create a company and present it Shark Tank style. They might just pick something that they know about because they know it's going to be easy. Versus now, if they know they can research an entire topic that they know nothing about, and they can do that in 30 minutes, an hour, they may start to explore things that were never possible or that they had no desire to explore because the amount of time it would take previously. So I think that they're really using it to dive deeper into things that they're passionate about. Whereas previously, because of the amount of time that research would take to dive into those topics, it may have previously stopped them.
Very
Got
cool.
it. And I know maybe this builds on that a little bit is I know, at least for Fairfield, I don't know in the case of Columbia, I'm not as familiar, but I know you're teaching in, I believe it's an executive MBA program, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's not a data science program.
Mm-hmm.
They could be working in all sorts of different industries. And I know, at least when I was, for my session, I know a lot of the focus was on examples. Show us what's really happening out there, and which I proceeded to do for about 4 hours and 32 minutes, when I was allotted 20 minutes, which is my general mode of operations. But, I guess, to me, like that really kind of illustrates the importance of making this concrete. So much of what we do in school is so theoretical.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think that's why it's so important for students, for consumers, for professionals to get their hands on with the technology. I think you don't learn to ride a bike by watching someone else ride a bike. You learn to ride a bike by getting on the bike, by sometimes falling off that bike, getting a scrape on your knee, and then picking that bike up and doing it all over again. So I would say that's definitely what I try to do in the classroom, is to get people using AI technology in every single domain possible, get their hands on with the tools, meet with professionals in that field, meet with SMEs in that field, understand from them firsthand what they're seeing, what the AI successes that they're seeing, how they're seeing it implemented in a really powerful way. And then let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. What do you understand? What don't you understand? And I think that probably should be replicated in the corporate environment as well. Get your hands dirty, learn about it, engage with people outside of your specific domain, and learn as much as you can.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. Both the conversations, both of you, made me think of Skunkworks and MIT. And if you've ever visited, I'm sure you have, and been there, it's just really amazing to see these students just doing random stuff. And it was the same when I went to school here in DC. I'm not going to name the name, but because it's not MIT. But but like, all jokes aside, I mean, really, it's an exciting time to be innovative, to be unencumbered, to have vision, to dream, to see if things will work, to break things, to fail, to get up, to do it again, maybe to do it in a completely different way or pick up a completely different project. And I think that's really where the excitement and the new things that we anticipate happening with artificial intelligence will happen. So I applaud your spirit and your, shall we say, encouragement for people to experiment at work.
Thank you.
Very good. I think that probably brings us just about to the end. I think folks have been listening to me ask poorly worded questions long enough, but I think they've benefited from Kait's well-worded, well-informed responses. Kait, where can folks find you, connect with you, and get to know you if they are so inclined?
Yeah, if they're inclined, I'm on LinkedIn. I think my name is Kait Arnold on LinkedIn. Let me double check. It might be Caitlin, but only my mom calls me Caitlin when she's mad at me. Yeah, Kait Arnold, KAITARNOLD on LinkedIn. Yeah, That's pretty simple. You can shoot me a message there. I post some things that I'm interested about, like US Open. I posted about that last week and IBM's involvement in that. So any sort of new exciting updates that IBM is doing, I'll post about. Anything in the market that I'm jazzed up about, I'll post about. But yeah, reach out.
All right. That's awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, there is the Kait Arnold episode. And if you liked it, you know what to do. Punch that like button, share it, tell your friends about it, comment. And as always, please do subscribe and leave comments. We really appreciate it. Thank you to our advertisers, and we are out of here.